everyone. Welcome to Loudoun County Public Library this afternoon and first day of spring for Loudoun County Small Business Owner Anne Lyons Step 1 Organizing Program. Thank you for joining us, and we're happy to have you here. As an active community member, Anne recognizes that spending more time at home has inspired many people to undertake decluttering projects. She knows many factors can paralyze the effort to purge. Today, she'll share with us practical solutions for what to do with a large variety of items, from electronics to old shoes and many items in between. Anne has cultivated her skill as a professional organizer and productivity consultant for nearly a decade. She has a passion for creating order out of chaos and has honed these skills to understand how to help others do the same. My name is Laura Ogelman, and I'm joining you here from Middleburg Library, and soon we'll be joined by my colleague, Allison Forbes, who is Purcellville Library's Head of Adult Services. We're your hosts today. Our schedule says the program is an hour and a half. It's actually 1 hour, and then Anne will take questions at the end, and we'll probably wrap up about 15 minutes after questions. Anne is planning to take questions also during the presentation. And if you see the chat feature there, you can ask the questions in the chat feature, and we will get these questions to Anne so she can answer them. Or you can feel free to hold the questions until the end, as we said before. And now, without further ado, I will hand it over to Anne. Oh, audio.
Rookie mistake being muted right at the top. Thank you, Laura, for that great introduction. Some of you might know me. I'm a Purcellville resident, and I am a professional organizer, have been for going on 9-10 years, lost track. I'm also a productivity consultant, which means in addition to helping people with their stuff and spaces, I also help with time management, goal setting, a lot of that kind of stuff. So the tone of this event is really relaxed. It's based, my content here is based on lots of years of people asking me, well, what do I do with this? Or I can't get rid of this, or I'm really hard, I don't know how to move forward. So I want to be really relaxed. Please jump in and ask the questions that you think of as you go. Laura's going to help me out here. I will probably cover some of the things you're already wondering about, but feel free to jump in. I'll leave a space after each sort of section for it. But my mission today is to give you some real insight into the process of decluttering and give you some very legitimate, actionable options for dealing with your stuff. So please ask questions. And also, I can't possibly know everything. So if you have information about great ways to get rid of something, places to donate, ways to recycle, please add them, because I'm in a constant state of learning. And I'm sure other people here would value the information. So please, by all means, share that insight as we go along. Well, I want to tell you a little secret about me, which may seem strange because people make all kinds of assumptions about a professional organizer, which is that I am always organized or that my home is in a perfect state. Don't be fooled by my background, which I cleaned up for you today. I am in a constant state of decluttering. There's never a time when I don't look around my house and go, why is that here? What is it for? Why do I have this broken thing? How many of these do I have? That is normal. That is life. And unless you all are not living an everyday life with a family and a house and pets and a job, you're never going to be totally out of it. But that said, I know a lot of us have really gotten motivated having spent so much time in our homes. So a lot of people are decluttering. And then you get to this point of, well, what do I do now? In my house, I actually have what I guess I call my declutter staging area and my unused dining room, which was actually used for Thanksgiving for the very first time in my history this year because we couldn't go to my parents' house. But I just have some boxes in there. And when I come across something that is outgrown by my kids or never used in my kitchen or whatever it is, I just kind of toss it in there. And when it's too full, I throw it in the car and I take it somewhere. And I'm going to tell you where some of those places are today. But that's normal. And we should be prepared to know that when you're decluttering, in 6 months, you'll be doing more decluttering, or in 3 months, or in a week, because once you get a bug for it, you start seeing things everywhere. The fact that you're here tells me that you're on some kind of a journey. So I applaud you in your efforts to declutter and simplify your life. There is a huge value in that process. Here's a couple of those values. You don't have to rebuy things you have misplaced, right? Or that you have bought 2 or 3 times already because you forgot that you had it. By going through your things and decluttering, you end up loving everything in your home, or at least finding it practical. You don't have to organize it, clean it, store it, or purge it later. And you create a mental space for new, wonderful things. Decluttering, trying to minimalize, whatever approach you take to this, you can't underestimate it affects you mentally, physically, more than just making things cleaner. There's a quote I love, and I don't exactly know the source anymore, but it says, "Look around, all that stuff used to be money." And when you say it that way, it becomes a little bit of like, oh no. But that is, for better or for worse, that is our American tendency. We have a tendency to shop, to buy. I'm sure that we're the ones who coined the term shop therapy. But let's be honest, it's ineffective and very temporary therapy. Spend your money on a therapist if that's what you need. We have the good fortune of endless choice in our society and our culture. But if you've ever heard of the paradox of choice, is that too many choices can be paralyzing. And quite often your first choice is your best choice. That is scientific. You can look it up. But we also have endless convenience. Hello, Amazon.com. But just because you can get it at your door tomorrow doesn't mean you always should. Our collecting and excessive amounts of stuff has given rise to an entire industry, which I am the benefit of, organizing and storage. It's kind of an ugly circle, which ultimately ends with a lot of sort of guilt and bad feelings about our stuff. So, of course, now I have made you feel guilty about all your stuff. But there are a lot of reasons why you feel that guilt too. And that guilt makes it really hard to let things go. So here's some of the things that people are always facing when they're trying to get rid of stuff. Number one, I paid so much money for this. That was expensive, you tell yourself. And so you struggle. What do I do with it? I can't just give it to Goodwill. I paid X dollars for this. The fact of the matter is the money's gone. And if you don't use the item anymore or like it, it has no value whatsoever. And just because you might be giving it to charity doesn't mean someone going to Goodwill doesn't deserve to have something nice that was once expensive. So it's a good perspective to change, but it's worthless to you no matter how much you spend on it if you don't use it. Second source of the guilt is, but it still works. It still fits. It's very pretty, you know? But if you don't use it and you don't love it, it's just taking up space and making you feel guilty. And the last thing people struggle with when trying to get rid of things is, I don't want to see this go into a landfill, right? We none of us want to just throw away perfectly good things and imagine them just taking up space in the hole in the ground. This is a noble concern, and it is one of the main things we will address here. So with this presentation, I hope to help you move forward from here, knowing that the things you part with will go to someone who will value it or benefit from it, and that in leaving it behind, you will not harm the environment. We've been hearing this since we were kids: reduce, reuse, recycle. And so I'm going to go into detail about some of those things. Any initial questions before I get into specifics, or does anybody have any of those other thoughts that go through your head when you have trouble deciding how to get rid of anything? Please share your thoughts in the chat if there's some of that stuff, because we all have those little things that get in our way. So Laura, you'll keep me honest if any of those pop up, but I'll keep
yes,
talking.
So yes, you are awesome. This is great. And everyone so far is listening and not asking.
All right, that's okay.
Oh wait, there's something. Someone, let's see, looks like Okay, I'm going to clarify this question and I'll get it to you shortly. I'll be right
Okay,
back. You
okay,
go ahead. Thanks.
okay. Well, I'm sure you guys have other things that just kind of get at you when you're having trouble letting something go, because it is hard to let your things go. One thing I'm not going to address, but I'm sure has popped in your head, are family treasures, pictures, kid artwork, and that's all for another conversation. But we all go through these things, and it always helps you just to remember, what does it mean to me? What will it mean to my kids? What will happen to it when I'm gone? That's some of those questions that are always helpful. Yes, Laura.
And yeah, we had someone mentioned they might be attached to something that someone gave to them, so it has a sentimental value.
Yeah.
She really people are really liking your point about things, waste going straight to the landfill. So they are thanking you for pointing that out. And there's a concern about being too impulsive and getting crazy about tossing things out. You probably have heard that before. I don't necessarily know what that means, but I bet that makes sense to you and your work. Yes, oh, this is a big one too. People are asking about, how do you keep from getting distracted when you're going through old things?
Okay, I can talk about a lot of those things, and I might forget one of them, Laura, so I'll try and remember. Sentimental objects are one of the hardest things to do. And when I am working with people, I usually try to get all the sentimental stuff together, because it's too hard. It'll stop you in your tracks and keep you from getting rid of the clothes that don't fit because you got caught up in the photos and what have you. So there's different kinds of sentimental stuff. Some of it is truly sentimental, like photographs and personal items from your childhood. Then there's sentimental things that you're holding on to because somebody important gave them to you. And that's hard. But I encourage you to take a step back and think about a couple of things. It's actually sometimes even harder if someone has passed on than if they're still around and you're worried they'll see it in the house, right? But the truth is, remember the spirit of a gift and imagine yourself giving someone a gift. The spirit is in the giving, not the thing itself. And nobody who loves you wants you to feel burdened by things. That's easier said than done. But put yourself in their position and think about people you've given gifts to. If they didn't really like it, or they had no place in their home for it, would you want them to keep it under the bed or in the closet until you die? You probably wouldn't. You'd probably be okay if they regifted it, if they gave it to charity or sold it on Facebook or whatever choice they made. So put yourself in the position. Gifts are about the spirit, and they shouldn't become your burden because they were given to you by a person you love. I mentioned how not to get sidelined by those things, it's that sentimental stuff. When I am working with clients, I have containers of some sort present to exclusively sort, and not make decisions about anything until that sort process is done. And when I say containers, I don't mean from the Container Store. I mean junky old cardboard boxes that you're not going to save. They're not your future organizing solution. They are just a place for you to put things that is contained until you're ready to make decisions about them. And so when you are decluttering, having a container for electronics, a container for I usually end up calling them treasures when I'm working with clients, a container for paperwork that you're stumbling across. That sort process is key. And then it's the decision making that comes afterward, which is where what we're talking about today comes into play, the challenge of making those decisions. So the treasures have many answers. There's answers for photos, there's answers for kid artwork, there's answers for those presents. There's even answers for things that are special to you, which I ask clients all the time. I had a client just this past week. She is downsizing senior, moving into an apartment, and in her garage, there was an adorable pair of high heel shoes in a shoebox. And I said, so what are we doing with these? And she goes, those stay. Those are the shoes I wore on my wedding day. And I didn't say this, but I wanted to say, why are they on a shelf in the garage? right? If they are so special, then let's take those pretty little shoes, which they were, and put them on a bookshelf so you can enjoy them all the rest of your days. Or find that after 5 years of looking up on the shelf, you're like, why do I have some old shoes on the shelf? But value your treasures, value your kid art, frame it and put it on the wall if it's good. You know, find a safe place to store it if you think your child will love seeing it in the future. But if you're holding on to it because it reminds you of that baby that's gone, or you're holding on to it because you feel guilt about your grandmother or whatever, you need to take some time and think to yourself, if it's meaningful, then it should be on display in my home. It should be where I can see it and love it all the time. And if I don't love it enough to not leave it in the basement or the garage, then you don't love it, plain and simple. So it's a little bit of tough love in that regard. But those things are challenging. When it comes to what to do with things, this is what happens after you've sorted everything and got through the initial declutter process. It's now, oh my gosh, I have a box of electronics. What do I do now? So, did you have something to add, Laura? Did I forget one of the questions?
No, this is perfect. I think everyone, we're getting really happy feedback here. You are helping a lot of people.
Okay,
We do
I'm
have
just
a
getting started.
question. This is a bit of an interjection, but didn't want to lose track of the question, which is, do you know where people could get free boxes so they don't have to buy more stuff?
Yeah, I hear you. That's a little bit tricky, but inevitably, and I love it when I see people do this. When people move, that process of unpacking and flattening those boxes and putting them into your garage, I love it when I see people on Facebook saying, cardboard boxes from a move, please come get these. And I encourage, if you are in that situation, to do that. Sometimes you can go to a store, go behind the 7-Eleven, you can find things like that. Professionally, I use banker's boxes when I'm working with clients, and I sort of buy them in bulk. I like them because they're not too big. They can easily be moved around. They have lids. You can get 10 of those for about 20 bucks at Costco. The beauty of it is, even though you are spending money and collecting something, when you finish that sorting, you then have an empty box to start over, and you can flatten them and save them for the next time because they're durable. The lid aspect allows you to take a break, put the lid on, stack them up. It looks nice and pretty. So that's a good thing to do. There's also a thing that sort of happens when you start decluttering is you start coming up with all the containers you have already bought over the years, bins and tubs and things like that. You've probably got them all over your house. And sometimes when you start decluttering, the bins themselves become part of the clutter as you empty them and purge them. So I encourage you to look around at what you already have. But free boxes aren't always easy to come by. But you can buy them in sets. There's even moving versions. U-Haul sells packs of moving for a 1-bedroom house or things like that. So but yeah, behind stores and things like that is going to be the way. So was there anything else, Laura? Did I miss one?
You covered everything.
Okay. Okay, so now, I could go on and on about how to declutter, and I've done this at the library before, actually. Allison might remember. But I want to talk now about all the different things we already know and some of the things you may not know about what to do with things. But I'm going to start with the ones we know, and that's the big charities that we do. And I'm assuming everybody here is largely from Loudoun County, though I post this all over my Facebook groups, so there may be some people who are here that are not local. If you're not local, this presentation is for you just as much because there's a little bit of local stuff here, but for the most part, I am talking about sort of organizations and useful things you can do with them. So I'm going to talk about some of the national charities that people are all familiar with briefly. One thing I say as I talk about these charities, please keep in mind their situations are always changing. Most are now accepting donations again, as they always have, but their needs are often changing. Sometimes they are overwhelmed with things, especially smaller local charities, and it really pays to go to their websites and see what their wish lists are and what their please don't give us any more of these lists are. Another thing about charities is some people are sometimes put off by some thinking that what they're donating is not really going to people in need. And here's the challenge. As I mentioned, we as Americans buy, collect so much stuff that the truth is we almost have more unwanted things than there are people who need those things, those specific things. I know that's hard to believe and maybe doesn't feel good. I saw a stat when I was preparing for this that said Americans produce 60 million tons of unwanted textiles every year. That's your clothes, your towels, whatever. There's not enough people in the United States who need or want that much stuff. And nearly 14 million tons ends up in landfills. So when you look at the big charities and you wonder, what's their, is all this going to their overhead? Why are they selling my stuff? Why are they sending it to a third world country or whatever? Recognize that they have found the best way to use what you are providing for them. I'm only going to talk about 3 of the national organizations right now, but and give a little clarity on some of that. But I want you to keep that in mind, that their approach to things is based on learning what works, and what they all really need is money. And so what they have found is a way to turn your old stuff into money. One thing I find when people are trying to get rid of things is if they can find an organization that speaks to their own values, it becomes so much easier to give things away. And it's been a miracle. Sometimes I have seen someone say, I spent a lot of money on these clothes and they're really nice, they're high-end designer or whatever, and it feels weird to take it to the Salvation Army. But when I suggest that they take it to the local women's shelter, where women can then have clothes to go to job interviews, they're suddenly willing to part with every piece of clothing they've ever had and outgrown or lost weight, gained weight, whatever it is. So when you find things that align with something that speaks to your values, it becomes a lot easier to let things go. So even when you're looking at charities and things to give to, keep that in mind and look at what they do, what their missions are, and you might find it suddenly a lot easier to part with things. So let's talk about some of the big 3 here, and I'll give you a little bit of that information. Everybody knows the Salvation Army, of course. Did you know that their thrift stores, the money made in their thrift stores, fund adult recovery centers for addiction, homelessness, all kinds of things? But adult recovery, helping people get back on their feet with housing, work, and therapy, is actually their mission. I didn't know that until I just looked into this. It is faith-based, so keep that in mind if that speaks to you or does not speak to you. But of course, it's the big guns, so they offer drop-offs in many cases, depending on what it is. They accept their cars, and I mean, I said they accept drop-offs. Of course they do. They do pickup in some cases. They always accept drop-offs, but they also do vehicle donations and so on and so forth. A little bit about the Salvation Army. Will talk a little bit about them. Goodwill's mission is about making sure people have the skill and supports needed to earn a good job, advance in a sustainable career, and provide for their family. And that is what the money that is made in their Goodwill thrift shops is put towards, programs that do that. Goodwill has locations in Sterling, Herndon, Charlestown, and both Salvation Army and Goodwill accept a lot of stuff, but they will turn some things away, and that's important to remember. It varies sometimes from location. Because they're such big organizations too, they have a lot more concern about liability and that kind of thing. So a lot of, for instance, children's products, baby products will be rejected outright because they can't verify their safety. So anything like that, you need to be aware that they're probably not going to accept it, and you may have made a trip in vain for that. In truth, most baby products are rejected by most places, but I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. You guys may have seen those big yellow bins in parking lots, the ones that say Planet Aid. Some of these bins get a tough rap because it's unclear what they're for, and a lot of people think that it's a scam. The ones that are yellow and say Planet Aid is a legitimate organization, rated by the Better Business Bureau and GuideStar Charity Reviewed. What's really different from the other two about these. One, they're everywhere and you can just show up and throw some in the bin and move on. Their mission is a lot more about environmental and social progress around the world. So items they collect, which is only textiles, you can't put household items in those bins. They want clothes and shoes and textiles, towels and blankets and things like that can be put in there. They sell the stuff. They absolutely, that is what they do. They sell that stuff to buyers in developing countries who help people set up micro businesses to make money for themselves, you know, along with some other entities. It's the idea of not just sending your things to other countries to clothe other people who may not have much money, but to help them establish themselves and make their own money. Planet Aid bins also support a diverse number of sustainable development projects. They focus in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And the programs they support with the money they make include things like teacher training, epidemic control, farmers clubs, children's aid, vocational schools, staff training. So if you feel a little bit like it seems dirty, like they're selling what you put in there, recognize that that is bringing money in for these programs and it can be directed where it's really needed. The other really great thing about Planet Aid is it doesn't matter what clothing, towels, textiles you put in there, what condition they're in, which, you know, dropping things off at Goodwill, Salvation Army, where you know they're going into a thrift store, you're unlikely to want to, you know, clothes with stains or holes. You feel a little guilty. You feel like, what do I do with those things? Planet Aid bins will accept those things and they will tend to them in whatever need is possible. They'll find a use for those textiles one way or the other. They do request that you wash things before you put them in there. As you can imagine, they sit in bins, then they go on trucks. It'd be good to know that that stuff isn't harboring any pests or anything like that, or, you know, breeding them. So those are some of the, I don't want to go into too many others because you always have to research each of these because what I tell you today may not be true tomorrow, but you should feel comfortable donating your items to these three organizations without hesitation. Anybody have anything to offer about that? I'm going to move on and talk just briefly about my favorite local charities and how they work. But I'll take a quick pause unless anyone has something to say about those three. Okay.
And if
Yeah.
someone wants to check a charity, look it up. Is it called GuideStar? GUIDE?
Yes, Planet Aid was rated on GuideStar. There's
Awesome.
also an organization called Charity Navigator, which I believe with both of those, you can go there and see where, like what percentage of their money went to their mission versus overhead, and they get a rating that says the validity of the charities. So
Okay.
those are two ways to check that out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'll post that.
Okay, cool. Okay, so again, this is a Loudoun County focused thing, and I'm sure most of you will have heard of these organizations, but maybe you don't know everything about them. But these are my favorite local charities, but especially with the locals, please check their websites for their wish lists and for things that they don't accept or can't accept for whatever reason. So the first one I wanted to talk about is, and I gotta speed up, I got a lot of stuff to tell you guys. Mobile Hope, you may know, Listen for the Honk. They have their RV that goes around delivering supplies. Their mission is supporting homeless and at-risk youth through the bus that delivers services and products. Also, they have an on-site thrift store and donation center. They accept clothing and shoes for men, women, teens, children, infants, any size, any season. They are also welcome gift cards, electronics, working, I assume, baby supplies, non-perishable food, diapers, hygiene items, household goods and furniture for their thrift store, Threads of Hope, which is open Monday through Friday and is on Miller Drive over by the airport and Apex Gymnastics and the voter place and all that stuff. So, but their donation center is on Parker Court in Leesburg, which is sort of near Ketterman's Jewelers, their new location. It's kind of around the corner from there, for those of you who know. But they take donations there, I believe, Monday through Friday as well. Anybody in Purcellville, Leesburg knows Blue Ridge Hospice Thrift Shop. They are my go-to for just, can I just get this out of here? Drop it off. They accept a lot of things. They don't reject much, at least not when you show up at the back door with your car. You can donate, I believe, 7 days a week at their locations from 10 to 4. And of course, their mission goes to support their hospice program. One of the marvelous things about Blue Ridge Hospice, which is very rare, is that they accept e-waste, electronics waste. They have a regular pickup there, I believe, for electronics recycling. So you can take all that junk there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that stuff as we move forward. But it's really nice to know that there's an easy place to do that. Of course, there are, well, I'll go into electronics in a minute. One of my other favorite organizations locally is the Inova Loudon Ladies Rummage Sale, annual rummage sale. For those who don't know, this is a massive annual rummage sale that is a tourist attraction for the area. Draws shoppers from the entire Mid-Atlantic in 2019, not 2020, it was canceled, but I believe they raised something like $350,000. And their proceeds go to the Inova Loudon Hospital and the Ladies Board Nursing Scholarship Fund. What's marvelous about this program is that they organize regular drop-offs starting in the spring until the event in the fall. And if you go on their Facebook page and website, you find they haven't announced any dates yet for this year. But they have regular pickups usually at one of the hospitals, and you can just drive through and there's all these wonderful volunteers who actually take the stuff out of your car for you. And they don't ask questions, they take whatever you got. And they have an army of volunteers who take that somewhere else, I'm not sure where, and haul it and sort it through for this massive yard sale in the fall. I see a question about computers and so forth, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. My last favorite organization, I mentioned this earlier, but LAWS, the Loudon area, is it Loudon Abused Women's Shelter? I mean, I just say LAWS, I'm having a brain fart over what it stands for. But
that's
it is
right, yeah.
Loudon Abused Women's Shelter.
Yes.
So they accept donations for their Resourceful Women Thrift Shop, which is, they accept donations Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4:30. This thrift shop is both for the public to shop, but it is also, the items in the store are made available for women who are in the shelter, who sometimes are arriving in a crisis situation with nothing but their children and their clothes on the back. So they get to come and shop in the store for the things they need. It's a great place for the same thing I mentioned, work clothes, things they might need to get back on their feet if they, need them. But the thrift shop itself accepts clothing for men, women, and children, household goods, books and DVDs, which not everybody is looking for. So that's a great resource to know about. And miracle of miracles, they accept stuffed animals under 10 inches. And I'm going to talk about stuffed animals a little bit later because they're very hard to get rid of. But 10 inches, mind you, we're talking Beanie Babies, but LAWS does take them. I have actually taken arts and crafts supplies to the main office as well, but I called and asked, but they were grateful for it at the time. So that's sometimes the kind of thing you can talk to somebody, and I was able to take a huge stash of sort of things for the kids there. So the other thing I want to encourage you as you get ready to get rid of stuff, decide where you're going to take it, get it out the door, make an appointment with yourself to drive that stuff where it needs to go, put it on your calendar and just do it. You will not miss most of that stuff. Do you sometimes regret giving something away? Of course, it happens. So rarely, though, does it happen that I think you should not be afraid to let something go. And I also tell people all the time, if something cost you less than $100, and I don't know anyone's budget here, but there's a good chance that you just simply replace it if you did regret getting rid of it. Maybe it's $100 threshold for some, $40 for others, whatever it is, just ask yourself that question as you're holding on to things just in case. Okay, so now I'm going to get into some really nitty gritty. What do I do with this? What do I do with that? And I'm going to keep going so I don't run out of time. So keep coming with those questions, but I'm now going to address a lot of very specific things. And I'm going to start with the number one question people have all the time, which is your technology. We have so much tech waste in our lives, and it's a challenge because we know it's horrible for the environment. We know we cannot put this stuff in the garbage, but we also are afraid to let go of it because of what's on it. And this is a challenge, and it's not an easy one. So obviously with iPods, phones, things like that, you can wipe those easily by resetting to factory settings if they still work. Bigger like laptops and the like, there's a little bit more of a process to wiping the information. And I'm not here to tell you exactly how to do that. I am here to tell you that tweens and teens love to take a hammer to those things. And that is one approach to wiping out your hard drive, is with a hammer. I recommend goggles and outdoors and perhaps putting it in a bag first, but I have seen my son have a good time doing that before I took it to recycling. So that said, small electronics, the smaller ones, as I say, and some big ones can usually be dropped off at some of our regular retailers like Best Buy, Staples, Target locations. So I'm talking your phones, your iPods, things like that that are small. Best Buy will take some larger items. Very few people will take old TVs, and I mean like with tubes that are not flat. If they do, quite often, you need to schedule it, and often they want you to pay them to take it. This is even true at the regular countywide electronics recycling events, which I did not provide a list of those because I don't know if they're on the calendar yet, but Loudoun County does always have a periodic electronics recycling events, usually in a high school parking lot that you can drive in and they will take your electronics. But this fear of the content that's on there, especially laptops and computers, the Best Buy Geek Squad can erase your devices for you if you want to pay for that service. But this is the issue that comes up. We all know we need to erase the things, but quite often when we get that new device, we simply put the other one out of sight. And before long, there's a collection of them. And we keep saying, I need to look at that. I need to go get on that computer and see what's there because you've totally forgotten when you moved on to the new computer. So this is a habit I want to encourage you to think about when you get your new tech. Try and wipe the old tech of what's there at the same time before you move on so that you know what was on there and that you have safely protected it. Another resource that I highly recommend to get out of this problem happening for you over and over again is start using the cloud. Find the source of that, whatever cloud service you feel safest with. And I know some people never quite safe with the cloud, but it's always there. And if you start using Google Drive and Dropbox for your files, you won't have piles of old laptops with your content on them. The other option is to store all your stuff on an external drive that doesn't have to be, that can go with you from device to device. So I encourage you to think about this as you move forward with your tech as a habit to get into, either wiping it, the old one, when you get the new one, or using the external devices so that you don't face that problem. You can simply drag all the old stuff to that device or to the cloud, and you know it's safe. So as I say, Best Buy, Staples, Target have bins for a lot of the small electronics. I mentioned that the Blue Ridge Hospice allows you to drop boxes of electronics. Local government events. Some organizations offer trade-ins and reselling services for things like cell phones and small electronics. Best Buy will take a trade-in for some of your devices. And there's some websites like Gazelle or, there goes my dog, one called Declutter.com. And everything here, starting my presentation, by the way, from the tech part on, is on a document that you can, we're going to send you a link that you can download this document after this, so you don't have to take notes from here forward. So Gazelle.com, Declutter.com, they'll give you a quote for your device. Some of them even offer free shipping to them. So that's another thing if you want to make a little bit of money. Don't expect to make a lot, but if you have a lot of things, there's something there. Second, when it comes to tech and devices and officey things, printer, ink, and toner is something we all often start collecting. Most major retailers like Staples and Target have bins for that too. And Staples and Office Depot will actually give you a credit toward the purchase of your next one whenever you turn in those ink cartridges. HP has a monthly subscription program for ink that I'm fond of that is connected to your printer, which is connected to the internet. So it keeps track of how many pages you've printed and sends you new toner, new ink when you need it. It's called HP Instant Ink. What this does is you always have ink. When you get the new ink from them, they send you an envelope to send back the old ink. It's the easiest thing in the world. And in the long run, the program is set up based on how much you print, how many pages. You choose a plan, a subscription program. In the long run, you pay less than you pay for toner, I think, if you're a person who prints periodically, frequently, which I kind of am. So I recommend checking that out. There's a link to that in this document I'm going to send you. Next question is, someone has asked, what about things like blow dryers and flat irons? These I put in, and I have to be honest, if there's anybody here who's an e-waste specialist, please speak up. I put these in electronics recycling right along with a toaster, right along with the tech stuff. It's electronic, it's got wiring, it's made of metal, things that e-recyclers, I believe, can tend to. And sometimes you have to accept that you might put something in a recycling or a charity organization, and they may end up throwing it away anyway if they can't find a solution for it. But I would recommend putting all types of electronics into that sort of those e-waste locations. Batteries are an issue that come up a lot. And I'll be honest with you, there's really not a lot of options for single-use batteries. According to the federal guidelines, single-use batteries are not considered hazardous waste, and they can go in the regular trash. I don't actually really know of many options for recycling them. Rechargeable batteries are absolutely recyclable, and there are bins for that at Staples and Home Depot as well. So rechargeable batteries don't go in the trash, and they can be recycled. So that's something to really keep in mind. All right, so now I'm gonna go to, wait a minute, I went past where I wanna go. Any more questions about tech? There's so much about tech, so I need to get back to my first page. Laura, what is Mom's Market? Oh, they recycle single-use batteries at Mom's Organic Market. So there you go.
They
I
do,
did not know that.
And Christmas tree lights.
Really?
Yes.
That's great. I might give them a call because some people have been saying recently that Best Buy doesn't accept power cords, which is actually one of the biggest problems people have. You have all these cords, you don't know what they go to. I have always put those in my e-waste, but someone mentioned that some places aren't taking that stuff anymore. So I might call Mom's Organic and see what they take. So, okay, so I want to move forward now to media of all sorts. And what do I mean by media? Books, CDs, DVDs, video games, video game consoles, and so forth. So let me talk first about CDs and DVDs. I mean, the sad fact of our modern world is that we keep making old things obsolete. Sad but true. CDs and DVDs can be donated to your standard charities and theoretically might get bought by those still holding on tight to old media. I don't know that CDs and cassettes and 8-tracks have the same retro value that, say, vinyl is having, but you can donate them. Recycling options for them are fairly limited, and I'm actually kind of sad because COVID killed a wonderful organization that was based in New Hampshire, where I used to send CDs, CD cases, the paper inserts, everything. You could stick it in a box and ship it to them, and they took it each piece apart and recycled it separately, but they have not survived COVID. And I won't go into it because I don't know that much about it, but the market for recyclables has been crushed. That's why you see our challenges with our recycling, even in Loudoun County. We have too much stuff. We have to start becoming a reusable culture because there's not a market for all this recycling, and soon we'll be back where we were 40 years ago when you couldn't recycle everything. So So, I digress. CDs and DVDs, though, don't have a lot of recycling options, but you can try and donate them. The website I mentioned earlier, declutter.com, you can scan the barcodes or give them the ID on them, and they will, books as well. They'll tell you what they'll pay you for them, and then give you a label to ship them their items. So at least you know it's going somewhere where maybe somebody will buy it that likes it. Video games and consoles. GameStop still does do trade-in of games, consoles, and other devices. They only give store credit, and they are franchises, and you should check with your local store to see what they need. GameStop does have an app, so you can, before you even leave home, see if there's any value to it, to what you're trying to get rid of. They're pretty clear that they kind of want recent stuff, so your Super Mario game from 96 may not have a place, but there are also people who love those retro video games. My nephew is one of them, so there's a market out there somewhere for some of that stuff if it works on eBay and so forth as well. Books are so hard because we all have different kinds of relationships with our books, and because of what they are, they have a certain sacred nature to them. So we certainly don't want to throw them away. And I have to put in a plug here for your local library. One, use it, because then you won't have books that you suddenly want to purge. And two, see about their local library book sales. As a Purcellville resident, I know fondly of the twice a year book sale, and it's a wonderful place to donate the books. There's a good chance what you donate may not end up in the hands of anyone or even on the library shelves. But bottom line, if the book is not sellable and not quite right for the library, it'll be their problem and they will take care of it responsibly. So big ups for your library. And if you, donation centers too, appreciate books. And then there's used bookstores who may or may not give you some money for your books. And there's a book reseller market out there for certain types of books. If you want to try and sell your books, there's a website called Book Scouter, which you can go in and put in the ISBN number, and it'll tell you the value of the book. And then you can choose different ways to sell it on eBay, Amazon. Not everybody knows you can sell things on Amazon like anybody else. They will take a cut, but you can set up your own little Amazon shop like that. On my document that I have for you guys, I also included a link to a great list of 20 ways to donate books from the website Becoming Minimalist that had a lot of different ideas that I didn't have time to research myself, but they sound great. So I put a link to that for you to check out. The thing about books is some people love them. They are their home decor. Some books, you don't even like them. You're not going to read them again. So don't be so afraid to part with a book. There are hundreds of copies of most books. They are not a treasure unless they are a treasure to you. And if they are not a treasure to you, perhaps they will be useful to someone else. Let them go. You don't owe them anything. Okay. If anyone else has other ideas for books, please share them in the chat. I'm going to move on to one of the other huge questions I get all the time. Kid stuff. Kids outgrow everything you ever get them. So they're inherently a challenge for you. I'm going to touch on a couple of specifics. The broad overview with kid stuff is, as soon as your kids have passed the age, let it go. The older kids' toys get, the less donatable they are. And if you keep every set of toys from every age, your house will be overrun. And some of you, I'm sure, are nodding your heads right now that your house is overrun by them. Let them go. And an organizer side note, I highly recommend in controlling toys is to not have all the kids' toys, especially for younger kids, out all the time, right? Put some toys away, rotate them, because I can't tell you how many times I've been organizing a playroom or a basement play space, and we find all these toys that hadn't been seen because they were just part of the overall visual that are suddenly the most exciting. It's like Christmas again. And if you can put toys away and bring them out, your kids will play with them. I mean, if they have too many toys, quite often we're all frustrated, like, why don't they play with the stuff I give them? Sometimes it's because there's too many things and they start to disappear even for the kids. So toys can be made new again for your kids, especially if they're little. But I'm going to talk about a couple of really critical things that come up for everybody. The first one is Legos, the blasted Legos. They multiply like bunnies. And when we were kids, you bought a box of Legos. They were all different colors. They were not a Star Wars space station or an airplane. Now you buy a new kit to build just that thing, and then you still have all the Legos that go with it. It's a brilliant sales tool by Lego, but it is filling people's homes with excessive amounts of Legos that will never be put together again that same way. Good news, Lego will take them back. The Lego Replay program takes the Legos back, washes, prepares them, and donates them to kids' programs like the Boys and Girls Club. They will even give you a shipping label. So in the document I have for you, there is a link to this. You can pack up your Legos, print out a label, stick it in the mail. Don't have to look at them, you don't have to wash them, you don't have to do a dang thing, but put them in the box. And if there are some there that aren't in a good enough condition, they're broken, they got chewed by the dog, whatever it is, doesn't matter. They will grind those bricks up and make new Legos, or reuse. They even reuse them. I don't know how this works, but their website says they reuse them in molding to help generate power in their facilities. So Lego, they're stealing your money, but they are being very good for the environment, closing that recycling loop. So Legos. Second thing that often comes up is crayons. Crayons multiply like crazy too, and there's 2 organizations that will take your crayons also. There's one called Crazy Crayons. Both of them melt them down. Crazy Crayons melts them down, makes new crayons, and distributes them to shelters and other underserved communities. And another one called the Crayon Initiative makes new crayons specifically to distribute to kids in hospitals. So crayons don't have to die a long, broken death in your house either. Also locally, local hospitals, women's shelters, as I mentioned, daycare centers in low-income areas, which maybe don't get the nice new crayons often enough, art programs, things like that might take your crayons. But I think really your best bet is to send them to these organizations. A lot of these organizations do provide shipping even, so it should be a really easy thing for you to do. Question that comes up, because if you have more than one child or even just one child, stuffed animals. Stuffed animals fill our homes. They're cute, they're available everywhere. People give them to you as gifts, and there are not many places to recycle them. There are not many places to donate them. They are not sanitary to donate for the most part. And nobody wants them. I have found one place that wants them. I mentioned the women's shelter, but they only take under 10 inches, which is a beanie baby at best. There's an organization called Stuffed Animals for Emergencies, or SAFE. It's a national network of volunteers who collect stuffed animals, blankets, books, children's clothes, and baby items to provide comfort for people in a traumatic or emergency situation. It runs on its volunteers, who are basically people who you can send these stuffed animals to. They wash them, they get them to the centers, or they have their own network of ways to distribute them. Theirs is a changing situation at all times, especially if they don't have volunteers in an area. So you'll have to go to their website. But thus far, that is the best resource I have found for stuffed animals. If you know one, please share. I'd like to hear about it. I have clients drowning in stuffed animals everywhere. The next thing that comes up with kids is the sports equipment that they outgrow, or the sports they stop playing. I have 3 organizations to tell you about. One of them is local and the other 2 are national. The local one is called Leveling the Playing Field, if anybody's heard of that. It's a DC, Maryland, Virginia-based organization that collects new and used athletic equipment to provide to underserved and at-risk youth. So they actually donate the money to the organizations who may or may not have been buying the equipment for their kids, and that allows them to allocate their funds to things like eliminating registration fees, expanding scholarship programs, enhancing their athletic programs. They take all different sporting goods and stuff. Again, check the websites. And they have drop-off locations in Chantilly, Baltimore, and Silver Spring. And I'm not sure if you can send things to them or not, but maybe one of those locations is accessible to everyone. They also are one of these organizations like the Crayon ones, and I think Legos, who encourage you to organize a drive if that works for you. So say you want to do something, a charity activity for maybe your high school student needs some service hour work or a project. You can run a drive for the crayons, a drive for the sporting equipment, and all at once to these organizations. Two national organizations, actually one's national, one's international, is of course Play It Against Sports. Everybody here, well, many of you are probably familiar with Play It Against Sports. These are franchises that buy your used sports gear and fitness equipment for resale right in their store. What they will take is determined by the season, what sports season we're in, and how much space they have available. So you really need to check in with your individual locations. You know, for instance, don't try to offload your football gear right now at the Leesburg location, probably. They're not interested right now. But it's a great way. You don't get a lot of money for what you drop off, but it's a great place to buy for your never-ending growth of your kid. My approaching 6-foot-tall baseball player gets his practice pants there all the time. Lastly, I want to tell you about Peace Passers. This is an international organization that collects specifically soccer gear to redistribute to communities that have limited access. Soccer is the world's universal language, and this is a great organization that collects any and all things soccer. But check out their website to get the specifics on that. So let me move ahead. I don't want to run out of time. I'm going to go a little bit faster, Laura, because I see I'm chasing the clock here, but I have a couple more things, but I'm going to speed it up. So the next item that comes up all the time are household materials, building materials, paint, plastic bags. I push out when it comes to building materials for the Habitat for Humanity restores. If you're not familiar with them, we do have one here. There's one in Chester. They are the go-to place to drop off things like scrap wood, scrap building materials, in many cases appliances and furniture. They do some pickup, and their work supports the mission of Habitat for Humanity, their vision of having a world where everybody has a decent place to live. And it's a great place to get a deal. Paint is the worst. Most of you probably know that latex paint can probably be thrown in the regular garbage, though you need to dry it up somehow, taking off the lids or adding one of those additives to do it, kitty litter, some people do. There's an organization called Yuck Old Paint that will come get paint and they will redistribute it to international humanitarian construction, theater groups, things like that, but they do that for a fee. So if you have a lot of paint, it may not be the they have a pickup fee and also a per can fee, but I put it out there if you're looking for somebody to come take all the paint away for you. Also, I have donated paint to the local school theater program, community theaters, college. They're always painting sets. Sometimes they don't care the colors. They'll mix them together till it's black so they can repaint their sets. You do have to ask. You don't want to overwhelm their storage facilities like we did at Blue Ridge Middle School. Okay. Plastic bags. I just want to put a plug in real quick about plastic bags. You all know you can take them to the grocery store. What you may not know is it's not just grocery bags. You can take your bread bags and almost any kind of plastic wrapping or film, as long as it's clean, to those bins. And when I started plastic bags, I take trash bags full of plastic to those bins. Once I started including the bread bags and the wrapping around packages and things, you realize how much, when you start recycling like that, you start realizing how much you really use. The beauty of that, and some may not know this, is those bags are recycled into construction materials. Many of them at major supermarkets, in fact, most of the ones in Purcellville anyway, are picked up by the Trex company who makes decking material, and that stuff is made out of plastic bags. So you can feel really good when you drop off those plastic bags at the grocery store. The last couple things I want to go into are some personal clothing items and medical items. And Laura, can I keep going for a minute?
Anne, absolutely. You go right ahead.
Okay.
You have time.
Okay. Okay, good. So personal items, we all know about donating clothes and things, but I wanted to talk about a couple of unique items and some that are a little bit challenging, like shoes. A lot of our shoes are pretty worse for wear by the time we don't want them anymore. And so there are a couple of opportunities here that I want to tell you about. If you're dealing with athletic shoes, especially because we wear those out, but sometimes they still look perfectly fine. Nike has a program, Nike's Grind, they call it. They recycle athletic shoes to make turf fields. If that isn't a perfect loop, I don't know what is in the consumer circle. And you can drop off your athletic shoes at any participating Nike store. I happen to know that there is a bin in the back of the Nike outlet at the Leesburg Outlet Mall. So, but most Nike stores do participate. Obviously, I can't guarantee that. There's another wonderful organization called Souls for Souls, S-O-L-E-S for S-O-U-L-S. And they collect shoes and some clothing to help people in a variety of ways. Some shoes go directly to victims of natural disasters and homelessness. Others are sent to developing countries where they help people run small businesses selling the shoes and other products that you donate. You know, it's kind of the give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach him how to fish kind of model in that regard, and really helps build sustainability in those communities. They have drop-off boxes at DSW stores, and they also have a partnership with Zappos, the shoe store, which allows you to put shoes into a box, download a label, and send them off to Zappos or wherever it goes when that label comes. So you can just let those shoes go. They also have a donation center in Chantilly, which I think is actually the same as the other one I mentioned, because it's actually a, I think it's a 1-800-GOT-JUNK warehouse, actually, that you can also get these things to by appointment if you have a lot. Here's a funny one, bras. People don't always drop their bras in the donation bag, but there is a need, especially once again in homeless shelters and women's shelters. All sizes. And the Soma retail store, there's one in Tyson's Corner. It's a lingerie store. And they host an annual event where they will collect your bras. It's usually in the summer. I believe it's summertime coming up. There's one. You can not only donate your used, new or gently used bras, say you bought it, you hated it, you never returned it, but they'll give you a credit toward the purchase of one in their stores. So as I said, they're donated to victims of homelessness and domestic violence. Here's a fun one, wedding dresses. Most people have saved their wedding dresses for some period of time. Some people come to the realization that, oh, I don't have a daughter. She's not going to wear it. Maybe I don't need to be storing this treasure forever. There's a number of charities, and I'm not going to go into them too much. The document I have for you has 3 charities that you can send your dresses to. And again, they have different missions. So I've put those there so you can choose one that makes sense to you. That said, they want relatively high-end dresses, and they need to be 5 years old or less. So keep that in mind when it comes to wedding dresses. Some alternative ideas are refashioning them. There's a lot of wonderful luxury materials in a wedding dress. And if you just take a minute on Pinterest, you will see a million ways that people have taken to use wedding dresses, including making christening gowns for their babies, flower girl baskets, taking elements from them and putting them into jewelry that you wear or give to someone. That's the sort of DIY Pinterest approach, or maybe you can find somebody who's better sewer than you to do those things. There's even some really kind-hearted, warm organization like Forever Angels of Virginia, who actually make them into burial gowns, excuse me, for stillborn babies, which is just a terrible thing to think of. But you really have to check their website. They don't always have enough seamstresses to do this, and they sometimes have more wedding dresses than they can use, thankfully. But I thought that was a really kind of a cool use of the wedding dresses that are going unused. Okay, last couple of things. Other personal items, medication, medical equipment, eyeglasses. Hopefully most of you know that you should not throw old medications into the trash or into the toilet. Unused medication needs to be disposed of properly to protect the environment and make sure it is not taken inappropriately. Most major pharmacy locations will do this for you. You can go to Walgreens, CVS, anywhere, and just drop them off, and they'll take care of it. There are also products you can buy to dissolve the medications and make them safe for disposal. I don't really understand how those work, but it exists. Eyeglasses, you can go to any Lens Crafters, Walmart, Sam's Club, or Goodwill and give them your prescription eyeglasses, and they will make sure they are distributed to people who may or may not have access to eye care or the funds to get new glasses. Medical equipment can be tricky. It has its limitations, and some things can't be concerned. It's almost in the same vein as baby stuff. But a lot of things can be. Blue Ridge Hospice is a place that will take some of it. And there's an organization throughout Virginia called the Free Foundation, which accepts walkers, canes, crutches, bath and toilet aids, wheelchairs, Hoyer lifts, bariatric equipment. So I have a link again in this document that you can use to get to these links. Here's one you may not have known about: empty beauty product bottles. They're plastic, but they're often the wrong kind of plastic to recycle, and they're often full of yucky stuff, or they're made of more than one material, like a mascara thing has a brush and plastic, and we're more likely to just throw those in the trash. If it's breaking your heart to throw those things in the trash, Nordstrom has a program called Beauty Cycle. And so at participating Nordstrom stores, they have a bin, and you can go and drop all that stuff in there. And in partnership with an organization called TerraCycle, which I won't go into, but look it up if you want to know how to recycle a lot of stuff. They are making sure that stuff gets recycled. And I did not put this link because I just now remembered it. There's an organization that takes those wands from mascara brushes and distributes them to organizations that are doing like oil spill cleanups. They use those little wands to clean the birds. I will try to look for that. I don't remember where I read about that, but I thought that was the coolest thing. Okay, I see comment, Nordstrom Beauty Cycle, yes. And I am going to, lastly, so I'm giving you 100 places you can go, right? To take this there, take that there, drop this off here, drop this off there. That can be tiring. Maybe you don't have time. So I have two last things to share with you if you just want the stuff gone, right? You just want it out. Two options. The first is the Give Back Box program. This is a program that truly closes the Amazon.com loop, if you will. Basically, you can use the boxes you get from Amazon, Wayfair, Zappos, whoever you order from, or any boxes, really. You can fill those boxes with anything. And I do mean just about anything except something that's hazardous. Throw it all in the box, tape it up, and go to the Give Back Box website to print a label and ship it to them. I can make this even easier. If you choose US Postal Service, you can go online and pick US Postal Service, request a pickup from your regular mailman, and put it on your porch. The end. Throw it in a box, tape it up, put it on the porch. It couldn't be much easier than that. The way it works is they distribute it to local charities of their choice. They have a list of some of the ones they do. Or if you have a specific charity you want, they can perhaps send it to that charity for you, but you may have to pay for the shipping yourself. So Give Back Box, it's a miracle. Last but not least, junk haulers. Can't say enough about them. They're a godsend when decluttering, moving, downsizing. Bunch of guys come with a truck, take everything you want and drive away. And your space is completely cleared. Now, it's not free. They pay by the amount, by the size of the truck. It's usually a quarter truck, half truck. But I want you to know that some of these companies, and I'll mention two, 123 Junk, Rat Pack. I always do that. Pack Rat. I always say Rat Pack. They're local. And Junk Luggers of Gainesville. I can vouch for their sustainability efforts. So the Junk Luggers and 123 Junk, their mission is sustainability. So they take your stuff and distribute it to charities to the best of their ability. The Junk Luggers of Gainesville take it a step further, and they opened a thing called the Remix Market, which is a bit of a makerspace where things can be made new again. People go there and start projects, paint furniture, do stuff, and then you can go there and buy it. Okay, so I'm done talking. I'm 12 minutes over. I'm sure there are other questions. As I said, all of these specific entities that I have mentioned, aside from the Goodwill and all of that, is in this document that you can download from this link here. I'll stop talking, Laura, jump in.
This is fantastic. You're getting really, really super feedback.
Good, I can't see you guys.
The link, we've posted it a couple of times, so that should be getting to people and everything should be there. I'll post your contact information as well after we get these. There was a question about a bone simulator machine. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Oh, what? A bone?
That would be a medical device, I'm guessing.
I don't even know what that is.
So she can check with her pharmacy.
I would ask, or sometimes Google's your best friend and just type the question, what do I do with a bone simulator machine? There may be some organization collecting them. I don't know.
And after you covered, at the beginning you addressed the emotional aspects of decluttering, but that was super valuable information. There may have been people who got on late and missed it, but there were a few follow-up questions about getting motivated and not feeling overwhelmed. And because we're so far into the time, I might suggest that folks we're recording this, so it will be on the Loudoun County Public Library YouTube page in a few weeks. You'll be able to find it by the title. And the beginning of Anne's presentation covers a lot of the emotional aspects of the struggle of purging the items. But if you wanted to recap that,
Sure. The essence of it is that, first of all, I said, if those of you who have come to this session, I believe you probably started some kind of a decluttering journey, and good for you. The mental and physical benefits of that are tremendous in more ways than you probably have even realized yet. I really can't overstate that when you start liberating your spaces of things, you become lighter. Your brain is letting those things go, and the stress that was associated with them that was under the surface goes with it. And that gives you opportunity to do your best thinking and your best living and making your spaces the places that make you feel comfortable and nurture you. So the philosophical thing behind decluttering everything, honestly, is why are you doing it, right? What is your why? And it sounds simple, but if you can say, I'm decluttering because I want my house to feel like this. I'm decluttering because I want to move in 2 years and I don't want to take this with me. I'm decluttering because I don't want my children to have to deal with my stuff when I'm gone. If you put your eyes on the prize in that way, the process becomes easier. And I'm like, write it down, stick it on a Post-it note on the wall while you're doing the work to remind yourself what you're doing. The other thing I said, which is what happens to people when they start this process, the overwhelm, is because they start trying to make the decisions about what to do with everything before they've finished sorting it out. You need to sort this stuff out, whether it's a small space, just a drawer, or an entire garage. The decision making is the hard part. And if you can sort things into either piles, I mentioned boxes before, but piles work as well. Put all the cleaning products over here, all the baby clothes over here, all the whatever's over here, and don't allow yourself to make any decisions about them until you've put everything into a unique space, because then you can deal with each smaller space on its own. When you're dealing with just the sporting equipment, it becomes easy to see what you need and what you don't need. And then you can take a break and deal with the cleaning products later, right? It allows you to turn it into manageable pieces, this sorting process. But when you just start taking things down and moving them around, we all become instantly overwhelmed. So keeping track of why you want to do things and recognizing that it takes a long time and it's hard. And you feel like it should be easy, but it isn't always. And that's normal. And that you'll be back doing it again at some point, but it won't be as hard the second time. Dealing with, I think I mentioned, dealing with the sentimental stuff, sorting it out first solves some of that as well, so that when you get to the sentimental stuff, you can start having some parameters of what sentimental stuff stays and what sentimental stuff goes. For me, I look at my kids' things as, when they're grown, will they want to show this to their kids? Will they enjoy seeing the artwork they did in preschool? If they won't, then it's time to let it go. If it's just for me, then I need to put it where I'm enjoying it, not in a box under the bed. So you really need to have a bigger picture vision of why you're doing things and what they mean to you, to handle the overwhelm. Is that good? And I didn't do what was going to be my conclusion here, sort of, which is, if hearing all of this has told you anything at all, is that we all will benefit if we bring in less. We need to try and bring in less into our lives. And I'm not saying everybody needs to become a minimalist. We need to become intentional about what we have. And if you're going to go through the effort to purge all this stuff, moving forward, be intentional. What do I want? Why am I buying it? Do I really need it? Do I have something like it already? You can buy, you are free to buy as much as you want, but recognize that there's a cost. Eventually it goes somewhere else, sooner or later. Did that help?
Thank you, Anne. I wish I could tell you all of the great messages coming in. We've had a great attendance today. We hope everyone learned a lot. I certainly did. And people know how to get in touch with you with questions. Your document is there. And thank you for sharing that with everybody. And again, please check our YouTube page for Loudoun County Public Library YouTube, and you'll see the presentation recorded in a few weeks. And I think that's everything, and maybe you'll come back next year and do this again in the spring.
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to. And if you have other questions, everyone, or suggestions of other places to recycle things, please use my email address there. I appreciate hearing from you guys.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming, and happy first day of spring. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.